Well, Josh, we both saw Babylon. I know you really enjoyed it, but I did not have the same experience. It actually took me several viewings to come around.
When are you going to do the next Star Trek video?
Just me. Well, we are talking about season 2 today, so shortly after this goes up, we'll start season 3. Anyway, I did not like Babylon at all. It actually took me 3 viewings to come around to it, but now that I've seen it 3 times, I really
When do you
enjoy.
think the next Star Trek video is going to be up?
What? You already asked me that. Why are you asking me that anyway? You're aware of our schedule.
Hey Alex, you ready to record?
What the hell?
Oh, sorry, I must have left out Q&A, Josh. He just says all of the questions we get in the comments out loud. It's easier so that I can get them all recorded on video for the Q&As, but I think I do need to make them more conversational, though.
Well, I think he's glitched or something. He just keeps asking when
When are you guys posting the next Star Trek video?
That.
No, that's actually not a glitch. That's just the majority of what we get. Alex, what's your gym routine?
Oh, a different one. I can answer that.
Actually, that is a glitch. Nobody asked that. Q&A Josh is just trying to get in better shape for his New Year's resolution. You don't have to answer that. I'll put him away.
Well, I can answer if he wants to know.
Alright, so we finally finished Season 2, and unironically, a lot of people have been asking when we'll be starting Season 3, but, soon is the answer, but we wanted to do this just like we did for Season 1, and we're even going to make it a little bit bigger this time. We're going to be doing top 10 episodes of Season 2, because I thought, there was some bad in Season 2, in my opinion, but there was a lot of good.
Yeah, we wrote out the notes for this episode. Like, oh, top 10. I'm like, fuck, top 10. All right. And then wrote out top 10 episodes, wrote notes for all of them. You're like, oh, I meant to do top 5. I'm like, I already did top 10. And you're like, screw it, let's do top 10. So we got top 10 for you today. But I think we're just going to start recapping the whole season as a whole, right?
Yeah, I think on Patreon, we'll exclusively be talking about directly comparing Season 2 to Season 1. But I do want to go into that just a little bit here, because I think that going into Season 2, we were so excited. I think if you watch our Amok Time reaction, the first episode of the season, you can just tell like how excited we are in the beginning. And I thought the show was going to like take off and become this new thing. In some ways it does, and I like that. We'll talk about it, especially in our countdown. But in some ways, it didn't. Like, in some ways, it was like, I don't know. I go back and watch the first season, and there's still a lot of great stuff in Season 1 that we didn't really get in Season 2. So I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a mixed bag, but, like, we really didn't. It was much different than I expected, I guess.
For me, it's like you have like maybe a pair of like 4 or 5 dice. In Season 1, you roll it, and then Season 2, we rolled it again. Like, it's almost the same, but a little different. I don't really feel like it was elevated that much. I mean, some episodes were fantastic, but it wasn't like anything like groundbreaking compared to the first. It's like it was good. I don't know. It's hard to put in the words.
A lot of these episodes, like, I'll feel differently about a few days after than our first initial reaction. And like so many times, obviously the whole time on the channel, as a viewer, all you're seeing is that first initial reaction. So that's why I really like these discussions, to go back and talk about everything. There's so many episodes that I thought were whatever, throwaway, that now I have stronger feelings about, or opposite. Some episodes I really liked a lot that now I'm like, now that I've seen the whole season, it wasn't the strongest. So yeah, ready to just jump into all of it. But I think the first thing we should talk about is Amok Time. We're not going to talk about too many episodes in depth because we're going to get to our countdown, but I think it was a detriment to this season that it started with Amok Time, because it was not only so good, but it was so different from really almost anything else this season that it set it up to be, I thought, I was like, wow, okay, now we're going to get this like deep sci-fi, like weird shit all season, and it really wasn't. Like, I think the episode after that was the one with Apollo, the god, where they go down and it's the god. I'm like, oh, this is back to what we've seen in Season 1.
Yeah.
So it was a really strong opening. I'm sure it's on our countdowns, I'm sure. So we'll talk about it more, but I think in some ways it almost set the standard a little bit too high for the season.
It's my favorite, arguably, season opener ever. It's the perfect we'll get more into it, but I just want to say really quick, like, having Spock so out of character in the beginning, because if that was a Season 1 opener, it'd make no sense. But the fact they knew how established he was, they have him in that sense so disgruntled. It was perfect.
Lieutenant Uhura here. Captain asked me to
Alone.
inform you he's trying to raise
Let me alone!
The next thing that was new about this season, one of the only things that was completely new, was Chekhov. The introduction of Chekhov as a character. I forget sometimes that he wasn't in season 1 at all, and like he settled in really quickly, I think.
Yeah, he added like a new like flair and color to the whole crew. Like he had his own little thing, and he was a good replacement for Sulu whenever he was off doing the other show. Like he filled that spot, and like in my opinion, exceeded where Sulu was in season 1. He was in some of the episodes. He was like one of the most memorable parts. He had a big part in it. Really good addition. You know, sometimes shows introduce a new character and it's just a flop, but no, I think he was one of the best parts.
Well, this is a drink for a man.
Scotch?
Aye.
It was invented by a little old lady from Leningrad.
But I think all the characters had really good moments this season, and as with any show, as the show goes on, you're going to have more time to explore the other characters. And I'm glad that while I love the big three, they didn't just focus on them the whole season. Like, okay, second season, now let's just, it's just the big three, everyone else is in the background. Almost everyone had moments, or even in some cases full episodes, like Scotty and Wolf in the Fold and stuff, where they have episodes basically centered around them. And I was a little bit even surprised by how far they went with that.
Every episode is episodic. You know, it's like it almost feels like a reset almost, or it's like, oh, I almost forgot. But there's little moments that I really liked. In Wolf in the Fold, Scotty, was accused for murder, and in a later episode, they talk about going on another shore leave. And like one line of dialogue, Scotty's like, I don't want to go. Like a nice little nod, like, oh yeah, the last time he went down, he was accused for murder. Like little stuff like that's very consistent.
With the big three, I think by the end of season 1, William Shatner as Kirk and Leonard Nimoy as Spock basically had their characters like down, like, they know what they're doing, they're good. But I think Bones, DeForest Kelly, this season was like his coming out party. Like the episodes he got to have, the things he got to do, and the way he got to explore Bones as a character was awesome.
Yeah, like they really let him explore how angry this character can get. Like once again, playing the opposite yin yang to Spock, and also how much of a humanitarian he is. It's like, no, this isn't right. No, it's like, well, Spock's like, oh, it's the logical thing to do. It's like, screw your logic, but it's like he really got to play.
Yeah.
Well, what do you know? I finally got the last word.
Overall, I liked it a lot. Some gems and some, oh my god. I mean, it's tough because it ended in the worst way possible.
Oh yeah, with Assignment Earth. Yeah, that won't be on our list.
It put just a bad taste in my mouth. I mean, I get it. It's not a season wrap. Oh, this is our last one. That was the last one to come out.
Whatever, show's canceled. Here you go. This can be our one negative moment before we get into our top 10. The worst episodes so far in the show were in this season. Like, as much as I don't like Miri and I don't like a few of the other episodes from season 1, they are really good compared to some of these season 2 episodes. And like, I'm not going to go through and name a whole bunch of them to make everybody mad, but I will make some people mad. The Deadly Years is the worst episode of the show so far, and all of our comments defending it were like, oh well, you'll understand when you're older. If that's the case, awesome. I hope I do. Like, I hope you're right, because I hope I get to a point where I understand this episode. But the thing is, I also know what old people are like. It's not like I've never met an old person in my life, and that doesn't make this episode better. You know what I mean? And my problem with it isn't just that they're old. I actually enjoyed, like, Bones as an old person was pretty funny, but Kirk as an old man was just so annoying and irritating, and the whole sequence of him in the court.
Not several minutes later, repeat that order. He did not.
I remember we went out to eat or something shortly after the episode, and I told you, I'm like, dude, that was the worst episode. Like, it stuck with me for days. I'm like, I can't handle how bad that episode was.
Honey, come to bed. I can't. I'm stuck thinking about this episode.
Stuck thinking about the Deadly Years.
I fail to understand why each one of my commands is being questioned.
So we can move on to our top 10. So let me get my... Okay.
I guess my first honorable mention is Trouble with the Tribbles. Didn't break my top 10. Neat little concept. We got to see a Harry Mudd-esque character who I believe they wanted to cast that actor. They wanted to cast Harry Mudd in that spot, but he was probably off doing something else. It's one of the most famous Star Trek episodes, but like nothing really made it like solidify in my top 10. Like It was fine. It was a neat little story.
People really hyped it up, and it was good. I liked it. It's not on my list. It's good, but I'm only going to remember 2 things from it. The bar fight scene. That was awesome. And then the bartender sitting like this with all the tribbles all over him. That was the best parts of it.
Next, I gotta go with Patterns of Force.
You realize that the aim will, of course, be very crude.
I don't care if you hit the broadside of a barn. Just hurry, please.
Because it made me laugh out loud super hard when, when the president's talking with his mouth like this. It's like, come on. I know you didn't like it so much, but I thought it was super neat.
Yeah, we did disagree on that episode. I didn't like it at all. But I will say I did like the sequence of we have to sneak her in, but we all also have to get in. So they pretended to be like paparazzi media videoing her. I liked that.
I guess my other honorable mention will have to be Obsession, because I think it really went into Kirk's past. Like he lost some crew members because of this thing, because he couldn't fire. He just hesitated, and now there's another young member of the Enterprise, some young red shirt, who like did the same thing, and like Kirk's like trying to help him not go down the same path, and like the red shirt tries to stop him, and then like Kirk reverses it, like, no, we're not doing that.
It's no time for heroics.
Okay, here's my honorable mentions, and they're all going to be kind of be in the same vein. I really like, my favorite, I think, format or setup for a Star Trek episode so far is when they beam down to a planet, are like exploring it, and the bulk or the whole episode takes place on that planet, and like maybe we'll cut back to the Enterprise here and there. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like my favorite. I that's what I like about Star Trek, exploring strange new worlds, right? Mm-hmm. And all these three I think did this really well, but they didn't make my list. So it's going to be The Apple, Gamesters of Triskelion, and I, Mud. So in all three of those episodes, they go down to a planet, something is happening that they have to deal with, and in each, there were very interesting concepts. In The Apple, you have this tribe that, worships this, like, snake god thing, and also all the red shirts dying in The Apple. They're all getting blown up.
Oh, yeah.
And Kirk was actually, like, really torn up about it. Gamesters of Triskelion, one of the weirdest episodes, but I just really like the concept, like a Hunger Games or, like, a Gladiator-type concept. Okay. Wish we would have saw more of the actual games of it, but I did like it, and then the green-haired girl, that actress did really well. Mm-hmm. And then I, Mud, I'm going to guess this is probably on your list, but it just missed mine. But I love Harry Mudd, of course, and the concept of him running a planet of androids. Just a great, hilarious episode. That improv scene was great with them.
Yes, absolutely. I'm breaking the rules. I had a fourth honorable mention for one reason only. It's Cat's Paw, just because of the horror intro. That's it. That's the only reason I like that episode, because I thought we were getting a full Halloween episode, and then the rest of the episode happened.
Okay, we're going to jump into the list, but first, we actually asked our target demographic patrons, our highest Patreon tier, to give us some input on Season 2 as well. So as we go through the list, I'm just going to be reading some of these from them. So this one is from Andreas Schmidt, and he says, "Hello, Josh and Alex. I've been loving your reactions, as I'm sure you're already aware. I think you bring in a fresh perspective with your own background and your age. I'm 43, so the 60s have already been before my time. He grew up with the original movies, and that's what got him into checking out the original show. And he said it's great to see our unique perspective, especially since we both like different things and for different reasons." Thank you. Absolutely. Appreciate that. A lot of reaction channels go out of their way to fanboy over everything and call every little criticism hating. What I love about your channel is that you guys remain honest. If you don't like something, you don't like it.
I got nothing to lose, okay? What are you going to do?
And then in terms of Season 2, he said, "Overall, I think Season 2 had some fantastic classic episodes and some which introduced lore that will be referenced throughout all future Star Trek shows. That alone makes it special, even though it also had some of the worst episodes of the show." I agree. "There's just no way Star Trek would be the same without some of the episodes in this season. Keep up the great work." Thank you, Andreas.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you.
We'll have a couple more here as we go through the list, but let's go ahead. Let's jump into our top 10. Alex, what is your number 10 episode of Season 2?
My top 10 episode is The Immunity Syndrome.
We'll be the virus invading its body.
Oh, isn't that a thought? Here we are, antibodies of our own galaxy.
Now, a quick little note. This was directed by Joseph Peavney, a really, really curious director.
Classic.
Wrote down some notes here. He directed 2 episodes of the Incredible Hulk TV show and 11 episodes of The Munsters. The writer was Robert Sabaroff. He also wrote a couple TNG episodes. I'm sure we'll get to them. But basically, the crew becomes, we come across this nucleus. It's like draining time. And I like this one because I feel like the nucleus is also a representation of humanity, because it's just draining everything and killing everything. And I feel like that's what humanity does as well. We just come across things and we destroy it somehow. And there's some really good character moments with when Spock, he goes in the little smaller ship, and he's like, nope, I got to do this. Makes more sense for me to do this. And he has a nice little speech at the end.
To the captain and crew of the Enterprise, finest starship in the fleet.
Just made that top 10. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I really liked Immunity Syndrome. My favorite part of it was all the stuff we got to see with Bones and Spock. I think when Spock like volunteers to go out in the shuttle, and he has that moment with Bones. A lot of good stuff there in that episode. So yeah, I really like that one too. And I like that interpretation you're giving about the amoeba thing representing humanity. I like that. That's good. My number 10 is Return to Tomorrow.
Risk is our business. That's what the starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
Now, this was directed by Ralph Senensky. Ralph Senensky directed a handful of episodes. Spoiler alert, they're all on my list. So this one is my least favorite of the ones he directed, but I still really, really loved it. And Ralph Senensky is my favorite Star Trek director so far. Sometimes I feel like maybe even I'm attributing things to him that he had no intention of. I listened to him in the This Side of Paradise episode of the Enterprise Incidents podcast where they interviewed him for it, and he's actually still alive. He's in his 90s.
Oh, wow.
And, you can tell he liked the show and he liked working on it, but I think even some things, like, I'm probably attributing intentions or stuff to him that he had no idea of. Like, for example, all of his episodes just have excellent scores. If the episode has a great score, it's probably on my list because I really love some of these. But Return to Tomorrow, you have, the crew, you have Kirk, Spock, and the female character in that episode get kind of possessed by these ancient godlike beings who want to use their bodies to build new bodies. And then, of course, the one who takes over Spock doesn't want to give him his body back. And any episode where we get to see Spock, Leonard Nimoy,
yes.
act in a different manner, I love that. He gets to be kind of evil a little bit in this episode.
Yeah,
and,
showing that range.
It will have twice the strength and agility of your body, engineer. That is assuming you'll stop wasting your time and allow us to complete it.
My number 9 is Journey to Babel.
Ambassador Sarek and his wife are my parents.
Wow.
Director, Joseph Pevney. The writer was D.C. Fontana. He wrote for many Star Trek projects, and also Babylon 5, which we might get to eventually. But this one was a very fun dynamic, almost a little whodunit. We finally get to meet Spock's parents. It has one of my favorite moments that we already brought up. Bones at the end in control of everybody, and he gets to end the episode. One of my favorite moments ever. And then we get to see Bones learning about Spock, and he added this little toy. And he's like, oh, you're a little teddy bear.
A fat teddy bear.
A teddy bear?
One of my favorite things about it is the pacing. It's just boom, boom, go, go, go. So much happening in the episode. It doesn't miss a beat. It could have been an hour and a half long episode with how much material they had jam-packed in there. So when you watch some episodes of Star Trek that are so sluggish and take forever to get to the point, you really appreciate an episode like that, for sure. My number 9, a piece of the action.
How does this thing work?
All right, Cracker, we don't have time to show you how to play with toys.
Guys.
I really liked a piece of the action. It had the duplicate Earth theme, which I don't always like, but in this it was justified because they're copying the mob. Obviously, you get to see William Shatner with his whole accent towards the end, the mob accent, and Spock with the gun, all that. So I really liked it. Not one of my favorites per se, but it does make my top 10. I really like the fun episodes of Star Trek, and this one was really fun.
Yeah, I'll save some time because my number 8 is a piece of the action.
So you locate the man on the other end of the blower and give him a ride to this flop.
What?
How about that? Yes, I love this episode. Director was James Comack. But yeah, I love the whole that their Bible is like a 1920s mobster story. Like, that's hilarious. We get to see Kirk and Spock in suits, and Spock with the top hat and them holding machine guns. We get to see Kirk attempt to drive a car. Not super, deep in terms of humanity, but just what? Just a fun, the writers were high. What if this happened? And they made an episode about it. Just fun.
Well, in a few years, the Iosians made a man a piece of our action.
All right, my number 8 is A Private Little War, also known as the Star Trek episode that broke us. The last 5 minutes, we could not compose ourselves, especially me. I was like, I couldn't breathe almost. I was laughing so hard. I mean, you go from this woman in the episode who can charm people. Her and Kirk get attacked by this gorilla creature who I think is called it was like a Mugatu or something.
Mugatu or something.
Yeah, attacks them. She steals the phaser and knocks out Kirk. Gets assaulted by these people. They shoot bones. It turns into a huge combat where people are literally getting their head bashed in with rocks, and then they just go, "Well, this place is screwed," and the episode is over.
We're very tired, Mr. Spark. Beam us up home.
I love episodes that are like goofy as hell, but they aren't taking themselves too seriously. This, I think, was like on the borderline. If they got rid of some of the silly stuff, like the woman charming people and some of the other silly stuff, the Mugatu, it would have been a little bit too serious for me, but it was just over that line where I'm like, wow, this is hilarious, and probably our most unique reaction so far in watching the episode, so yeah, it has to be on the list for me.
On to my number 7 is I, Mud.
Look round you, Kirk. Quite a place here, isn't it? I hope you're all going to enjoy it.
Mud.
One of the most anticipated returns ever in any form of media. Directed by Mark Daniels. I don't think I've brought him up yet. He directed the I Love Lucy film and many episodes of the TV show. And written by Stephen Candle, who has over 100 writing credits, including the original Batman show. But we finally come across our favorite lovable villain, Oaf, or we already talked about it a little bit, but a bunch of androids. We have one of my favorite scenes where the group gets to do a little improv. I thought that was a lot of fun, but also one of the most terrifying endings where he just left, where they leave Harry Mudd on this planet with like multiple clones of his wife constantly nagging him.
Goodbye, Harry.
My number 7 is Metamorphosis. This is another Ralph Sinensky episode. Every episode he does seems to be about this like deep, visceral human connection for the most part. And in Metamorphosis, it was just about that human love and connection, where the character in the episode, he kind of gets offended once they tell him, like, no, this creature's in love with you, and he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, hasn't he been down there for like 100 years? Like it was keeping him young.
Yeah, 100 or 200 years.
Yeah. That always rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, what do you mean it's in love with me? It's like, what do you mean? It's like you guys have your little bonding moments where he just stands there. Remember that, where you just stand there?
Yeah, he's standing there in the blob. Yeah.
But I get it why it's on your. In terms of like a human story, it was good, but.
Great score, again, one of the best scores, a nice like romantic score, and the set of the planet I really like purple background. It was really well done for like a nice little set that wasn't on location. And then also one of my favorite reaction moments when you have like Kirk talking in the background, and then you just see the guy Cochran just like sitting there in the foreground, like clearly with an earshot.
Very well, you have your orders.
Yeah, he didn't hear any of that.
So true about like older shows and stuff. Yeah, that was great.
Everything will be an eye-opener to you. There's 1,000 planets out there, 1,000 races.
Number 6 is The Doomsday Machine.
Where's your crew?
On the third planet.
There is no third planet.
This episode had one of my most angry reactions, where we come across a Starfleet captain on a different, another ship like the Enterprise, completely empty except for him. He beamed down all of his residents, all of his crew members onto this planet, and this machine killed them all, so he's completely distraught.
I couldn't.
Kirk was in another ship, so he like took over Spock, and he's just like making all the wrong decisions. It's like, dude, we can't destroy this thing. And like has one of my favorite redemption arcs where he, commits suicide trying to destroy this thing, but because of him destroying it, they found out how to beat it. So he had like a little bit of retribution there. And also a very nice funny moment is when like Kirk found out.
I'm in command here, Jim.
What happened to Spock?
You are speaking to a senior officer, Kirk.
Give me Spock.
Yeah, I'm very shocked that's on your list. It's not on my list. And for me, the episode was fine. I liked it. There were some things we complained about, but like it was just a fine episode. I really liked the guy's performance who plays the other commander. He was like completely unhinged, by the end. Good stuff there. But for me, I usually have a pretty thick skin when it comes to our channel and the internet and stuff. This one got to me. Not the episode's fault, obviously, but it got to me that people did hype it up a little bit, and then we watched it, and I'm like, yeah, that was fine, it was good, but I didn't think we were harsh on the episode really at all. And then we posted it, and people got so offended by our like reaction.
Really?
And yeah, and like people were like really mad. And I was like just so confused because I'm like, we didn't even not like the episode. You know what I mean? Like if someone gives is mad at us because like we hate an episode like The Deadly Years or something. Okay, like yeah, if we hate that episode and you like it, I can see why that would make you angry. But people were so mad that we were just like lukewarm to the episode, at least me, you know?
Like I think I liked it because it gave such a like strong response out of me. Because it's a lot better than just staring at the screen. It's like already thinking like, geez, this is gonna go for a good reaction. Like I was so mad watching this episode. If a TV show or a character can pull that emotion out of me, you did your job. You did a good job.
Yeah.
And like that moment where like Kirk finds out that this dude is running the ship and how mad he was that Spock wasn't. It's like little things like that. Like that's why I had to put it on the list.
So my number 6 is Obsession.
It's like something out there knows I'm scanning it. It's kind of keeps changing itself into something different.
Another Alf Sinensky episode. I think this was in your honorable mentions, you said?
Yes, it was.
And I really loved, again, talking about like just like deep human emotions. This one was all about vengeance. And like when is vengeance the right thing to do and when is it going too far? Because, you know, still you could have this argument even after finishing the episode. Because Kirk was driven by vengeance and his obsession with defeating this creature. But ultimately, he does defeat the creature, which is what they have to do. So it's like, but how much is he going too far? Remember, he's really harsh and punishes that one person on the ship because he let the guy die, but he was really mad at his younger self.
You were a little hard on the boy, Jim.
He froze. One man was killed.
For doing the same thing.
And he got to use this crew member to like basically talk to his younger self. And I really liked that kind of metaphor there. Bones also was great in this one, like I mentioned earlier, about like, no, I'm not using our friendship to manipulate you. I'm going to write a report about you because you're being unfit.
Don't push our friendship past the point where I have to take a fish.
Episodes where like Kirk is like so not cool, like you can tell something's bothering him. It just puts like a different tone on the episode because like Kirk's like, you know, our guide. You know, he's like our through line. And when he's like not like cool, calm, and collected like it usually is, it's like it feels strange almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get to our top 5 now. But first, we'll read another patron input here. This one is from Dale Gonya. And Dale says his thoughts on Season 2 are to look at the development for Kirk, Spock, and the McCoy triad. Each episode has this at its center usually. Season 2 has some classics, Amok Time, Journey to Babel, Doomsday Machine, Trouble with Tribbles, but some episodes have the triad gems like Spock and McCoy facing each other in Bread and Circuses, and again in Immunity Syndrome. Sometimes even in an absurd storyline comes the best of these characters. It's a good way to look at moving into Season 3 and beyond. The stories will go all over the place, but the triad is the core. Absolutely, the triad, aka the Big Three, absolutely.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Dale. And Alex, what is your number 5?
My number 5 is A Wolf in the Fold.
She's dead, Jim. Stabbed 12 times.
Director, Mr. Classic Joseph Peavney. Writer was Robert Bloch. You know, Psycho is based on his novel. So the crew is planned a little shore lead. They go down to this planet. There's some dancing, and then a woman's murdered, and like Scotty was like right there. So it's a nice little murder mystery, and like Scotty's right in the front of it. It just can't catch a break.
I remember starting to turn. I don't remember another thing.
It's one of those what if ideas, like, you know, Jack the Ripper, like, is this 2 centuries? What if he was like a being man that traveled from like entity to entity? I'm like, okay, I like that idea. I like when they throw ideas at the wall and they make an episode about it. I liked all that.
Fun fact, that was the first video that we used our new current logo and setup and everything on the channel. So that's a little fun fact about it. But yeah, I enjoyed that one too.
He's dead, Jim.
My number 5, By Any Other Name.
We call them Sashir.
A rose by any other name.
Captain?
The reason I love the episode so much is the crew has to use all of their best traits and talents to take the ship back from this crew. So Kirk seduces the woman. Spock like outsmarts the captain guy by making him, be jealous of Kirk in that scenario. You have Scotty out drinking the one crew member.
Yeah.
I might be forgetting some, but yeah, they all kind of had to use their own traits to, defeat this emotionless species. Oh yeah, and Bones like gave the one guy like a shot that was supposed to help him, but obviously it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was a sneaky one because it was like the first half was pretty good, but I'm like, okay, let's see where this is going, and then it just like I really loved the second half with all the crew getting to shine.
We're going home.
Number 4. Bread and Circuses.
Need any help, Doctor?
Whatever gave you that idea?
Director is your boy, Ralph Sinesky. Did you know he directed an episode of the original Planet of the Apes TV series and The Twilight Zone? How about that? Writer, Gene Roddenberry and Gene L. Kuhn. Basically, the big three beam down to a planet where the Roman Empire never ended, and it's modernized with guns and television, and they have like the Roman Empire like fighting battleground, but it's a TV set. I thought that was hilarious. Some great character moments with Bones and Spock, and like we get to see like Bones try to fight, and just like, and it had one of my favorite villain redemptions ever. I brought this up in the reaction, where like there's two main villains. The one was like a former Enterprise guy that came down and kind of just gave up. Like I'm working for this guy, and the other guy just keeps like digging at him. It's like, oh, you're nothing like Kirk, wow, you suck, and like he's finally like, okay, and then his last moment before he gets killed is like giving them the thing back so they can beam up, and he's like, there you go, and then he dies right afterward. Similar to one of my favorite deaths in spoiler, A War for the Planet of the Apes, where like the red donkey, the red ape, he's like working with the humans at the last moment. He like shoots the dude, looks at Caesar, and then just dies right after. Love moments like that, and a lot of fun in this episode. One of my favorite moments was like they're fighting with the swords, and then something goes wrong, and the guards start shooting with machine guns. You forgot they had guns. Oh my god, I forgot. I love that episode.
Yeah, I really like it too. Big surprise because there was only a few episodes left. I think this is the second to last episode of the season.
Pretty close.
And I was kind of at this point thinking like, okay, yeah, the show's been canceled when they were making it. Like they're just getting out these last few episodes. And then I'm like, I didn't have super high expectations. And then this one just blew me away. And I learned about it afterwards. People said in the comments that they actually made that episode way early on, but they didn't want to release it because I guess like people speculated this, but because like of how it makes fun of like TV, networks and like the whole kind of meta thing there, that they waited until the very end to release it, which I just think is funny if that's true. But yeah, I've enjoyed that. My number 4 is Journey to Babel.
Being Vulcan is more important to you. And let your father die, and I'll hate you for the rest of my life.
You brought this one up before. It's really high on my list because I just really loved, like I said, the pacing of it. I really loved getting to see all these different races and species on the Enterprise interacting with each other, the political, discussions they had about the vote and everything, and then, some of them obviously getting killed. You have the one guy who ends up being like a spy planted. There's just so much going on in the episode. Kirk gets just randomly like attacked and shivved in the hallway, and it just like cuts right to it. In the middle of their fight.
Yes. We've talked about this before, but like episodes are just like waste no time. We've seen episodes where we've seen someone unlock from handcuffs. Every single person, it's like.
Yep.
But then like something like that where it cuts to him already stabbed, or it's like what? It's like love moments like that.
Yeah, and so much happened in the episode. I mean, it starts off with meeting Spock's parents, and you think that's going to be the whole story. Like, oh, it's the Meet the Parents episode, which it is, but there's just 8 other things thrown on top of it, and they were all done so well, so I really loved that one.
They all tie together at the end, too.
Isn't it unusual for a Vulcan to retire at your age? After all, you're only 102.
102.437 precisely, Doctor.
Top 3, here we go. Okay. Number 3, Amok Time.
I await you.
She's lovely, Mr. Spock. Who is she?
My wife.
Mr. Classic, Joseph Peavney. Writer Theodore Sturgeon, who wrote 2 episodes of the 80s Twilight Zone. So, it's the Season 2 opener. arguably my favorite. We already talked about this a little bit, but my favorite season 2 opener ever. We get to see a little bit of Vulcan. We get to see some Vulcan traditions, and the special Vulcan woman who won't be a part of like the main Federation Council. This whole marriage thing, and we get to have one of my favorite endings of all time, where we get to see Spock react to Kirk being alive.
Don't you think you better check with me first?
Captain. Jim!
Jim, you're alive! And it's like, and then he has to bring it back. Loved everything about this episode. It was like the hottest start ever. Like it's a detriment to the rest of the season, but one of the hottest starts ever to a show. And it's like, you can't, like, I don't know, there's 2 more I like more than this.
Yeah.
But it's amazing.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. I'll save my thoughts on it. My number 3, you already talked about, Bread and Circuses.
Okay.
This is my favorite of Ralph Sinensky's episodes. You mentioned he directed it.
Glad we're so close.
And Bread and Circuses, I already mentioned it, but it just blew me away, surprised me, and as time has gone on, I've liked it more and more. Just such a great episode. And then, like, the whole meta thing when Kirk first walks in, and it's like, oh, you're going to be the gladiator, and then we find out that it's actually just a set. And it's like, oh, wow, this is so cool. It's such a unique thing for Star Trek. Flavius, the greatest name of all time, which people in our comments have been like, I don't know why he thinks it's so weird. It's a real name. That's awesome that it's a real name. It doesn't change my mind. It's still the best name in the show.
I don't know anyone named that.
Yeah, it's still the best name in the show. Flavius, I love that. If I was going to make a list for possible children names, Flavius. But yeah, really love that. That's my favorite Ralph Sensi episode of the season. Just definitely one that I will rewatch again and again. If I'm ever like going through the show, just watching like some of my favorites or whatever, that'll be one of the first ones I watch. And then we also, on top of all that, get that nice moment of Bones and Spock in the prison.
Well, what I'm trying to say is you saved my life in the arena.
Yes, that's quite true.
I'm trying to thank you, you pointed-eared hobgoblin.
Where they're like talking to each other and they get that moment where Spock's like, leave me alone, like I'm just trying to figure this out, and Bones is trying to like break through to him, and then they're like, and then he's like, yeah, I'm worried about Kirk too, and then it cuts to Kirk having sex with a woman.
Number 2, Mirror Mirror.
Mark was right. Those are
Directed by Mark Daniels. Writer is Jerome Bixby. The Mirror Universe is introduced. So a lot of good stuff here. Our team is like going so undercover and not to be discovered by the Mirror Universe, but then it cuts back to our universe. our universe already figured out, yeah, there's something wrong with them, and they have him in the brig, and they're all like, ah!
Yeah.
And Kirk having so much faith in Spock. Mirror Universe Spock, where it's like, hey, listen, you're the guy who can change this and make everything right here. Because he already knew, it's like, even evil Spock with his goatee can do something to help fix this world.
What is it that will buy you? Power.
Fascinating.
Power, Spock.
Man, even as I look at my number 2 and number 1 right now, it's like, I don't know what order to put them in because I love them both so much. But I'm going to go with my number 2 is going to be Amok Time. Really, really love it. Very close to being the best episode of the season, but it was just fell a little bit short, and I'll get to that when I say my number 1. But Amok Time, amazing start. I remember when we were watching the first episode, and they're about to do the battle, and then Spock goes up, and they do the hand thing for the first time, and we're both like, oh yeah, we totally forgot.
Yeah.
And it's we had watched a whole season of Star Trek and forgot about that, and it wasn't in the first season. And I know it's a recreation, CGI remastered shot, but still, when they go down to his planet and it shows like the city in the background as they're walking across the bridge, that was an excellent shot. And then the whole reveal where his soon, supposed to be wife is like, oh, I chose Kirk because if I had chose Stan, then, you would have killed him. But if I choose Kirk, he's not going to want me. I get Stan either way. I don't want to be your wife. And I'm like, that's such a nice twist. Like this random character they just brought in gets to be like the one who outsmarts everybody.
Logical. Flawlessly logical.
And then the whole first half where, like, we have no idea what's going on with him and why he's so mad. Like, just figuring that all out. Great opening of him just throwing the soup, into the hallway.
What is this? Crying. If I want anything from you, I'll ask for it.
Yeah, really loved that one.
So now we're going to number 1, huh?
Number 1, but first, one more Patreon entrant here. This one is from Chuck Rice. Chuck says, "Hello."
Thank you, Chuck.
That's all he said.
He's like, no.
Okay. Star Trek Season 2 was the season that turned Star Trek from an anthology show with a loose setting into the fictional universe all us nerds think of when we say Star Trek. Journey to Babel and Amok Time especially introduced the audience, and then he says, the target audience, to the wider Federation beyond the whole of the Enterprise. Meanwhile, Trouble with Tribbles, a piece of the action, showed Star Trek's ability to work as a comedic show in addition to its serious science fiction roots, something the series will definitely return to in the future. Seeing your reactions to this season was a really great way to see the show through fresh eyes, something that's hard for me to even imagine. Star Trek has been a part of my life since age 6, when the original series was all there was. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to see these reactions continue forward. Thank you, Chuck. Deeply appreciate that, and thank you to all those patrons that participated and let their thoughts known about Season 2 and our reactions to Season 2. But the time is here. Alex, what is your number 1 episode of Star Trek, the original series, Season 2?
A Private Little War is my favorite episode of Season 2.
No.
Can you smell this fragrance? Some find it pleasing.
Director Mark Daniels, writers Gene Roddenberry and Don Ingalls, who wrote the 1979 Captain America TV movie. So, the gang visits a planet where Kirk had a buddy 13 years ago. They return. Now there's this war going on between these two lower level species. And the whole like Prime Directive type issue, it's like, hey, don't get involved. We can't advance these. But the Klingons came down, advanced to one side, and they have to battle with whether they should help this other side or let them die out. And that whole dynamic fascinated me. And also, the appearance of the Mugatu made me lose my mind. The ending fight was hilarious, and like you lost your mind. It's like we were both just like, oh, and like the girl keeps trying to like get away, but she's not doing enough. Then and they're just watching, and drops Bones' famous line.
She's dead.
The weird sexual ritual. This episode was like a laugh riot, but also there was some good, like I love endings where it's not like, oh, let's go home. Like this ending was like, what do we do? It's like, and the dude that was like so optimistic and happy in the beginning, at the end he's like, no, we need these guns. It's like, oh my God, I thought it was great. It was great. Also, Nurse Chapel slapping Spock.
Again, continue. The pain will help me to consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, God, hit me. And then Scotty running in. What are you doing?
What are you doing, woman?
Leave me alone!
Have you gone down?
Don't need me.
It's like one of my favorite reactions of the whole season. It's like this episode was like so weird and jam-packed, and I loved everything about it.
Yeah, it was so weird, and like that character of the woman who like charms people and stuff, like just so random. Like, why is it in this episode but it works, and it's so great, and then we get the whole 5-minute sequence of her like whatever she's doing to Kirk. It was hilarious. The ending of it though, there was already so much going on. I was laughing because so much of it was already crazy, and then Bones just gets shot, and like he ends up only getting grazed. But the way they shoot it at first, the guy shoots the gun, and then you just see Bones fall, and the other two characters like run forward, and your reaction, you're like, was Bones just shot? But it's like you can't even worry about it because there's so much other stuff going on.
It gives you no time to register what's happening.
Yeah, and then it just cuts to someone with a rock just bashing their head in. It's like there was just so much happening. I've rewatched our reaction to that sequence so many times. It's so great. It was hilarious, and I totally get why it's your favorite episode. For me, I don't know how many times I'll go back and watch A Private Little War. I probably will rewatch it for sure, but nothing will ever be able to match that original reaction of seeing it now that we know, what happens. But yeah, as an original reaction, definitely, it might not be my favorite episode, but I would say it's probably my favorite reaction that we've had to the second season. I loved that so much. Oh my God.
Bro, what the fuck? What do you got?
All right, my number 1, Mirror Mirror.
Ah!
Parallel universe, coexisting with ours on another dimensional plane. Everything's duplicated.
I'll be honest, dude. as soon as we watched it, I was like, I don't know how any episode's going to top this. And it didn't. Nothing did. The reason I like it a little bit more than Amok Time is just because I feel like, you know, Mirror Mirror, you get to see a different kind of Spock in Amok Time, but in Mirror Mirror, you get to see different versions of everybody. And it's so fun. I mean, even Uhura gets that awesome moment of the badass scene where she beats up the other woman and takes her gun. You get to see evil Sulu with like the random scar on his head. I'm so glad he was there for that episode and not gone. We'll talk about it more, I'm sure, in the Patreon comparison. This might be my favorite episode so far of the whole show. I really loved it.
I just love the relationship. Like, Kirk is so confident in Spock, where it's like, even if it's a different universe, he still like puts all his eggs in that basket. Like, this is my guy. This is my dude. It's like, if anyone can do it, if anyone can help us leave and, you know, change this universe, it's my guy Spock.
The fact, too, that with the other versions of our crew who get transported, we get to see the evil versions of them back on the regular Enterprise, and I thought it was perfect the amount of time they gave it. Because they gave you enough to, like, show these other versions that got transported to the Enterprise, but it doesn't waste too much time, like, with what they're doing. It doesn't matter. Like, they got arrested immediately.
So they figured it out right away.
Yeah.
Something's not right.
And then the relationship that Kirk has in the episode, the closest probably to an Edith-type relationship where they actually build it.
Is that the one I called it? It's like, oh, she's going to be...
Yeah, she's going to be like a new person, yeah. And they actually, you can tell it's not just a hookup. Like, he has an actual relationship with her, and he doesn't like the fact that he has to leave her behind, you know, in that other universe. And then she shows up at the end with the clipboard.
I was just assigned last week.
Yeah.
And he, like, just already goes up to her and starts talking to her. Of course, never in the show again, but that's okay.
Just for that episode, it works for me. That was a great moment, yeah.
But yeah, so that's our top 10s. Probably maybe only a handful of ones that I know I'll never watch again unless I'm doing a full rewatch. But for the most part, yeah, really loved season 2, and it's nice doing this because even the day we're recording this, it's already been about 3 weeks since we finished the season. And as you said, we finished it on one of the weaker episodes. So we still got a few weeks to go before we start the 3rd season, but this discussion got me back. You know, I feel like I'm back now. Like all right, let's jump back in. And season 3, we're going to be watching, hopefully, at an extremely quick pace to, I don't want to say just to get through it, but because a lot of people have told us their thoughts on season 3, and also it's the shortest season of the show, and we're really excited to get to the animated series and the movies and you know, TNG, so we're going to be going through it pretty quickly. So subscribe to the channel, and you'll be able to watch all that. But yeah, any closing thoughts on season 2?
Assignment Earth and the Deadly Years suck. There you go. Those are my closing thoughts. What else sucked?
I just love whenever we don't like an episode. So like sometimes people will comment and say, you know, this is one of my favorite episodes, but it's nice to see you guys with a different opinion. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, yeah, awesome, you know. But it's like, I just love when like we don't like something and someone just comments, this was my favorite episode. It's like, okay,
sorry.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want me to say? My opinion has now changed.
It's like, I hope we brought a different perspective to what you thought of it. It's like, I didn't like it, sorry.
Yeah, and then there are some where people have said they, like A Private Little War. Some people were like, I've never given this episode a second thought, you know, or whatever, and like watching this was hilarious with you guys, and I look at it completely different. So that's one of my favorite things about, you know, watching the show. But
my favorite episode of the season. Tuesday, we're hitting shoulders and back. Wednesday, we're doing legs, hitting them pretty hard. Friday, we're gonna do
Alex,
Jeez.
what the hell are you doing?